Begin the current Daf, Mesechtas Nedarim Daf Nun Zayin. Begin on the top line of the Amid, where we continue again with the next Mishnah. Continue on this theme of these last two parakim. When you're taking a neder from something, what does that include? But in this Daf, we segue a little bit to when you are specific to something. How far does that neder go in regards to what is that prohibiting? As we'll see in today's daf. Today's daf. Some of the discussed in today's daf are generally when you take a neder prohibiting yourself from something, chilufin, what it's exchanged for, gedulin, an outgrowth of it is mutter. However, our Mishnah begins with koinim peiros ha'elu alai. When you take a neder, and koinim is a lotion of carbon, of these peiros are forbidden on me. When you're specifying, that's the criterion. Then you're coming to say that whatever, it's like going to have a halacha like hektish. And hektish, anything that's swapped with it or outgrowth of it has a halacha like hektish too, and then it actually is going to be forbidden. Our Mishnah was to discuss the differences regarding ein zara kala or zara is kala. If the seed, the bulb doesn't deteriorate when you plant it like an onion, so then therefore even could be gedula, outgrowth of outgrowth is all going to be forbidden because you're always going to have somewhat of the original source of the isser there in the future outgrowth. And that gets us into a discussion of geduli heter malnas isser. If permitted outgrowths that are not the original prohibited thing, would they elevate and be mavatal the isser or not? Which Machim will show them exactly what the discussion is. So we begin the current Daf Nun Zayin, top line of the other. Says the Mishnah, Kainim peiros ha'elu alai. And that's the specific, the elu is very important. If someone takes a neder that these fruits are forbidden on me, or Kainim hein alpi, or they're a neder on my mouth, or Kainim hein lifi, or they're a neder to my mouth, these are all similar terminologies. But the main idea is since he specified these things that are forbidden on him, so he made it like into hektish. It's like this item. This item is the thing that's forbidden, and therefore the Mishnah tells us the following halacha. Asr, he's going to be forbidden now, even bechilufeihen ubigdulehen, even in what you swap it for, or an outgrowth of it, just like by hektish. Hektish, when you swap it for something else, now the transfer of the sanctity goes to that other item, and the outgrowth of hektish is going to be forbidden. So too over here, which the Ran explains. He says, and that's the point of our Mishnah. It's not similar to someone who takes a generic neder from, let's say, figs or grapes. Because there he didn't specify, he made the whole species forbidden on him. So he didn't make the whole species hektish. That's not what he was doing. He only had in mind not to eat from that species. So therefore then what it's transferred to and the outgrowth is not going to be forbidden. Only like in the case of our Mishnah, where he specifies and he says, peiros ha'elu, these peiros. So the same thing would be, says the Rambam, let's say he says, peiros mokum blaming. Says the produce from that store or that place or that person, since he's specifying, that's like this halacha of pirate of being specific, and then he's going to be forbidden, and chilufein and b'gdelein, he says like we explained in the Mishnah beforehand. Now, he asks the following question. He says, if you're going to say, how could you say that what becomes forbidden, b'chilufein and b'gdelein, is because of this idea, this principle that Ran's explaining of pirate of being specific, but Rami Bachama had asked in Parakah Shudfin on Daf Memzayin Medalf. He had the question of Kainim peiros ha'elu al plaini. He says, let's say someone says, I'm taking a neder, these produce should be forbidden on Yenim, on that person. Ma'u b'chilufeim. His question was, what's halacha with the transfers? Now, what was the question of Rabbi Bachama? His question was, if the reasoning of the Mishnah is because the neder, the one who's taking the neder, it's his intent, so therefore, the night is going to be forbidden. But the mudder, the subject, meaning you cannot go ahead and make forbidden on someone else what's not anymore in your reshus. So that you wouldn't be able to make forbidden. Or maybe no. It's not because of the kavanah of the neider. It's because chilufein, the transfers are like gidulehen. And the same thing would be by all Isur Hana, that the chilufein would be forbidden if for the machlef himself, for the one who's changing it, and so too for the mudder. Like the Ran says, he explained this on the Memzayin Merav. Now, that's the question that we have in Daf Memzayin. But says the Ran, most definitely, if the reasoning is like the second option, that chilufein is like gedulehen. So that's not necessarily because you said elu, because that's every Isur Hana that you would also be forbidden in chilufein, just like gedulehen. So since, according to that oidilma, the second option of Rambam Chama, the word elu is lav davko, So then says the Ran that even if you're going to say like the first option, that it's because of the kavanah of the neder, that would also sound like the elu is lav dafka, and that would also be asur in general, because Rabbi Chama's question was not dependent on is elu dafka or not. So it sounds like they both tzadadim were without elu. So that sounds like not like our Mishnah, that the whole reason why chilufein and gedulein are forbidden is because he said the word elu. And that says the Ran, what I could say is that the truth is that no, elu, like we're saying in our Mishnah, is dafka. It's only because you're mafarit, you're specific. Therefore, that's why the chilufein and gedulein are going to be forbidden. And even if you're going to say that the reason why, like Rabbi Chama's question, that he was saying why it should be asr, it's because chilufein should be like gedulein. That reason is not enough only to make it forbidden on the machlef himself, the one who you're transferring it, which you're not supposed to. So then we're going to say, oh, okay, so then the chilufin and the gedulein are going to be forbidden also. But to make it forbidden to someone else, that you wouldn't be able to do. And that's what we're saying, that the Mishnah is saying, Asa b'chilufein b'gedulein, is even if someone else switched it. And then Isser obviously has to be because of Elu. Because chilufin of Isser Hana in general, when someone else switches it, would not be Asr. Rambam Chama on Daf Yomi, what he was saying was, yes, it's pasha to me, says Rambam Chama, that when someone else does the chilufin, the only reason why it would be Asr, like our Mishnah is saying, because the word of Elu. So therefore that's dafka when the neder is making it Asr, that's his kavanah, but the mudr would not be forbidden. But my question is, when the person himself did the chilufin, if it's going to be forbidden specifically the chalipin because of elu, to say also that specifically by the neder, the mudr, the subject, that other person will not be forbidden, just like we say when someone else switches it, or maybe that no, although when someone else switches it, it's asr specifically because of elu, but when he himself switches it, then you don't need to have elu because the reason of chilufin is also because it's like gitulin. And therefore it wouldn't make a difference if the neder or the mudr, the one who's making it, or the subject of the neder. I was saying in our Mishnah Elu, that's like we said because of a chilufin acher, when someone else is switching it. Without Elu, it would not be forbidden in chilufein. So that's just a Ran addressing the question from Daf Mem Zayin. How do we resolve it with that question? Is he saying that if the main point really that's coming out from the Ran is that the reason why we need to have Elu is when you're doing chilufin for, and someone else is doing the chilufin, would it be forbidden on that person when you say Elu? Then yes, because it becomes like a shtik hektish, which is forbidden even if you do chilufin. Continues the Mishnah. So that was if you say kohen pedus Elu alai. What happens if you say sha'ani oichel b'shani toim? You say that I'm thinking that these payers are forbidden shani oichel that I will eat b'shani toim that I will taste. Then mutu b'chilufein b'gedulein. Then you're actually permitted in the transfers and in the alcohol, because as the Ran explains, although we explain, and this is what the Ran explained in the base, that the word shani oichel shani toim actually are increasing the isser, which includes even like the juice, it includes other things. Even so, you're not going to be forbidden in chilufein b'gedulein, because when you eat the chalupin and the gedulin, you're not tasting those pears that you made forbidden. It's shani oichel b'shani toim, and that's not what you're eating, what you're tasting. So therefore, you'd be permitted in the chilufin and the gedulin. Now the Mishnah continues, and this is going on the whole Mishnah, and we're explaining this that we said in the Reisha, that when you say kohen pedus elu alai, you're going to be forbidden, and in the gedulin. Now it sounds like that specifically in the gedulin you're going to be forbidden. The outgrowth, something that grows out of the original period. But gedulin, the outgrowths of the outgrowth where you replant it again, that sounds like that would be permitted. And that's what the Mishnah is coming to qualify and explain that this is all talking about bedavar shezarei kala, by something that the seed deteriorates when you plant it. In such a situation, although the original gedulin, the first time there's an outgrowth, is going to be forbidden, because although there's nothing left from what was forbidden in the gedulin, because the seed deteriorates, even so, gedulin are not going to be less than chilufin. Chalipin also, even though you don't have anything from the original item, is going to be forbidden, and therefore the same thing would be by gedulin. But gedulin, an outgrowth of the outgrowth, that's going to be permitted, because since gedulin by davar shezarei kala, when the seed deteriorates, is like chilipin. Oh, so just like chilipin is permitted. When you transfer something and then you transfer that to something else, can be permitted. As obvious in the Gemara that we have in the Mem Zayin Mabeis, when you sell it and then you sanctify the monies and you mekadosh a woman shemim b'kedeshes, so to gedula is going to be permitted. And that's why the Mishnah said, you're forbidden in the outgrowths. Which sounds like, but Gedula, no. Because we're talking about qualifies the Mishnah, but Davish Zar color, by something that the seed deteriorates. So too the Sefer that said Shani Eicha Shani Tam that you muta b'chilufein b'gidalein, that's specifically by something but Davish Zar color. But Davish and Zar color, but regarding something that the seed does not deteriorate. Oh, then both in the Reisha and the Sefer, when you say Koin Peris Eloi, or you say Shani Eichel b'Shani Toyim, then Afili Gedula Asurim. Then even the outgrowths of the outgrowths are going to be forbidden. Because since the seed never deteriorates, the bulb never deteriorates, so Gedulin have mixed in from it the original Isser. Now, although it's going to be Batal Be'elef, because whatever originally was there made a whole new item, and then you took a little bit of that and you planted a whole new item. But as the Gemara is going to say later in the Testament, we already quoted this a concept previously, Nedarim are considered Davish Shesh Matir. You could permit in that by going to the Rav and having them out to the Neder. Anything that has matirim, afilim elef lay bottle. It's not nullified even in 1,000. So therefore, it's davish and zarakal. It's going to be forbidden even gedulim. Now, continuing in a related vein, says the Mishnah, someone says to his wife, take a neder, whatever you're going to earn is forbidden. I don't want to have anything from you. Keep your money and you do whatever you want with it. It's a neder on my mouth. It's a neder to my mouth. Then he's forbidden not only what she makes, but in its transfers and whatever's an outgrowth of that. Now, what's the chiddush? What's this more than the ratio? So the Ran explains that when you designate the payers of another person, like in this case, where he's designating the earnings, whatever his wife makes, it's like you're saying elu. That's the chiddush, and it's going to be forbidden b'chilafein b'gdulei. And now the Ran has parenthetically a question. He says, wait a second, ma'aseh dayim is davashem b'mamash, it doesn't have substance to it. And how can you make a neder on it? So it says you could explain this Tugmad when he says Koin Yodecha L'Maseha, as the Gemara says many times. The neder is on her hands for whatever the earnings are going to be. Or it could be we're talking about whatever the wife made after she already made it, which already has substance. So therefore, we're saying it's considered like Elu, and it's going to be Asabich L'Feim Megidolei. Let's say you say Shani Eicha Shani Time. It says that's it. Your food gives me heartburn. I don't know, whatever, I'm going to be, it's a ned on me, whatever, I'm not going to, whatever you make that I'm going to eat or that I'm going to taste. So, he's permitted in the outgrowth and in the, what a transfer is. So, what's the chiddush in this part, in the Sefer also? Says the Ran, here also there's a chiddush more than the ratio. Because even though it's considered like you're saying elu when you specify what the wife is making, but since he concludes his words, Shani Eicha Shani Tayim, he's going to be permitted because, like we said, Mais de Ishta is like saying Elu, like we said. And even so, we're saying on that, Shani Eicha Shani Tayim, then Muta B'chilufein B'gidalein. Because when you're saying that I'm going to eat, that I'm going to taste, not only is that not increasing the Isser regarding Alipin and B'gidulin, when you don't say Elu, to the contrary, it's permitted even when you say Elu. Because Chalipin and Gedulin, you don't taste anything of the Isser because it's something else. So therefore, when you conclude your word Shani Eicha Shani Tayim, it's coming to permit it because, as the Ran explains, the reason why this is more of a chiddush than Shani Eicha of the Reisha, because he says actually Shani Eicha of the Reisha is not going on Elu, and he brings a proof from the Gemara of Membeis Membeis wanted to resolve a question of Shani Eichel that it's specifically that we learned Muta B'chilafim G'dalein. It sounds like that the Gemara says, man, whatever comes out from them, like the Jews, that would be awesome. But says the Ran, if the case of Shani Eichel the Reish is going on Elu, how can we resolve from that? Here it's different because it says Elu. So he says the reason why this is a big finish to say because actually the Reish wasn't going on Elu. It was just saying Shani Eichel Shani Tayim. Oh, so that's Muta B'chilafim G'dalein. The Sefer is saying even in the case of Elu, because it's going on the handiwork of the wife, which is specifying, is like Elu, and even over there, if you say Shani Eichel Shani Tayim, it's going to be permitted because you're not tasting or eating anything of the originally prohibited item. So that's why it's a bigger chiddush. Now again, here the Mishnah does like it does in the Reisha. But this is all bedavar she'zarekala. This is all if it's something that the seed deteriorates. Then you're going to be mutar b'chilafim b'gidalein, or gedulin in the case of kainim heim lepi of the ma'aseh yadayim of the isha. Bedavar in zarekala, but something that the seed does not deteriorate like an onion. I feel like gedulin. So then even the algorithm will be again because the dharma considered davish as matirin, and there is no pit. Continues the Mishnah. a little bit more of a complex case, which we've quoted previously in different Masechta. Sha'at Oisa. Let's say the husband says to the wife, what you're going to make, ain't eichel out of Pesach. I'm going to die till Pesach. Whatever you're going to make, I'm not going to till Pesach. Or, Sha'at Oisa, whatever you're going to make, ain't miskas out of Pesach. I don't want to wear any of your clothing, you make all this knitting, whatever. Until Pesach, I'm not going to cover myself. So, if Asal of Nea Pesach, if she makes it up until Pesach, Mutar Lecha Liskas is Achar Pesach. You'd be permitted to eat that or to wear that after Pesach. What's the chiddush of this? So Ran explains that we're not in doubt that maybe the words Ada Pesach is going on Sha'at Oisa. And then the words Eini Eichel would mean forever. If you read the words Sha'at Oisa, Eini Eichel Ada Pesach, the word Ada Pesach, if that was qualifying, there's two words that could qualify. It could be qualifying Eini Eichel, it could be qualifying Sha'at Oisa. You could read it Sha'at Oisa Eini Eichel, comma, Ada Pesach. Meaning, what you make up until Pesach, I'm not going to eat forever. Says the Ran, that's the chiddush in the Mishnah that no. If that was the case, then you should have said, Sha'at Oisa Ada Pesach Eini Eichel. Like we say in the Sefer. From the fact that you didn't say that, sounds like that you mean to say, no, the Ada Pesach is going on the Achila. I'm not going to eat it up until Pesach, but after Pesach, then I will eat it. Continues the Mishnah. Let's say another terminology. Sha'at Oisa Ada Pesach. What you make up until Pesach, Eini Eichel, I'm not going to eat. Or Sha'at Oisa Ada Pesach. What you make up until Pesach, in Miskasa. So you see here the wordings are different. Here the words Ada Pesach was put in after the words Sha'at Oisa. Oh, then Asal of Nea Pesach. Then if she made it before Pesach, then it would be forbidden to wear this or to eat this forever, even after Pesach, because whatever she made beforehand, he said unlimited, Eini Eichel, Eini Miskas. Now, a related case, let's say it's more specific, let's say it's conditions over here. Pesach. Husband says to the wife, I'm making a neder, you're not going to allow me up until Pesach. If you go to your father's household up until Sukkot time, then you can't have enough of me up until Pesach. Now, this Mishnah we actually explained in detail previously in Daf Tezvav Meral, if we had a Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Nachman, that this is biblically. The question was rabbinically: are you allowed to have a no now? Are we concerned that you're going to violate the Tanai that it's going to come to go afterwards? So would you be able to have a no? Are we concerned that if you can have a no, Sukkot is still another 6 months after Pesach? That we had a machlekes what the halacha would be, but according to the Ikar halacha, biblically, so that's what it's saying. It says the Mishnah as follows: Hachalaf now Pesach. So if she goes before Pesach, which was the Tanai, so then that's Rabban say Ada Pesach. So meaning she can't go any time up until Sukkot. But if she goes up until Pesach, then she can be to have a no Ada Pesach. Definitely not until Pesach. That was when he made the Isser. Continues the Mishnah. Now, if she goes on Omid Beis, if she goes La'achar Pesach, as Tais explained, I mean, if she had a no before Pesach from his stuff, and now she's going after Pesach up until Sukkot, which was when the Tanai was up until, then the Bal Yachal. Then retroactively you violated the neder of what he said of making it Asr, because you weren't able to go up until Sukkot time. Says the Mishnah, let's say he says Shat Nendusli at a Chag. Here it's the other way around. He made the Isser prohibiting her from benefit up until Sukkot. If you go to your father's house up until Pesach, the inverse of the previous case. So Hachlav Nea Pesach, she goes before Pesach, which was up until when he says you're not allowed to go. Then she'd be permitted to have benefit up until Sukkot time. But in Materis Leilach Pesach, she would be permitted to go after Pesach. What's the chiddush in that? The chiddush is that we're not concerned that you make a tois by Isur Hana, because if they let you go after Pesach, so then you might come confused because he said that what?
Implied.
Yeah, no, I'm saying because he said that you can't go up until Pesach, but the issue of the neder was up until Sukkot. So if we can let you go after Pesach, you might think that you might also then come to have Hana after Pesach. I'm saying I'm not concerned about that because the issue was he only prohibited her to go up until Pesach, and now it's already after Pesach. But the Gemara says regarding the opening halacha of our Mishnah, we said, if someone says to his wife, take a neder that whatever you make is forbidden, it's forbidden, etc. Ultimately, the Mishnah made a differentiation and said that it's something that the bulb does not deteriorate. So then we said even Gedula is awesome because you have still from the original Isser and whatever the outgrowth is ultimately going to be. So related to that halacha, the Gemara brings a Shmuel Ish Kfar Yama. He lived in a village which was right by the water. Of Amrila, some say Ish Kfar Di Yama, which the Rosh says is the name of a city. Either way, Hela B'Yadai, he brought this question with his mouth, meaning Bitzel, regarding an onion. What's the case of the onion? What happens if he took an onion the Shemitah year, and but not the B'Shmitas, he plants it in the 8th year. Now, a Shemitah onion obviously has certain halachas of Shemitah. But now, Rabbi Gedul about Alikara. What happened is that the growth of the onion grew more on the root, which the Ran explains not just that it grew, but rather has to be a type of growth that in general, that if it was coming from somewhere else, it would have been enough to mavat from the Issa. But the question is specifically regarding the Gedul, the outgrowth. The question is Geduli Heter, which these are permitted growth because they grew in the 8th year, would they elevate and nullify the Isser of the onion from the Shemitah year? As the Gemara explained, and this was his question. Gedul of Heter, the growths that are permitted, meaning whatever grows in the 8th year is permitted growth. The Ikrei also, but its root, it's the original onion, is also because it grew in the Shemitah year. Now, do you say keeping the Rabbi Gedula Meikare? Since there was an increase of the outgrowth over the root, so Eising Geduli Heter, so those growths that Heter are permitted. Malnes says it would elevate the Isser and make it permitted, Oiloi or not. Now the Ran, in contrast to the other Rishonim here on the page, says that the primary suffix is, do we say that the Gedulim, the outgrowths, since they're being extended and they're coming out from the Iker, because remember, onions are not colored, they don't deteriorate. So do you say that it's like the Iker, because it's coming out from that, and then it's going to be Aser? Or would it be like Heter? And then it's going to nullify the Isser. So the Ran really says, the Gemara could have asked the halacha regarding the Gedulim themselves. Are the Gedulim permitted, or are they forbidden? But says the Ran, Ha Baha Talia, they interdependent. If Geduli Heter are going to be Malas Isser, then obviously the Gedulim themselves are permitted. And if they're not going to be Malam, well obviously then they're forbidden. Because if they were permitted, then they would have been Malam, they would have been nullified, they would have nullified. Other Rishonim say no, Gedulim are for sure mutter. Question is regarding, are they going to be Malam Isser or not? But that's how the Ran explains it, that the question is essentially, are the Gedulim permitted or not? And then, will it nullify? So the Gemara says, also come into Rabbi. So he came into Rabbi with this question. He didn't have an answer. Also came to B'Tzim Nafcha. He answered it from the teaching of Rabbi Yana. Yana said a teaching. B'tzal shel truma, an onion truma. So you already had your produce and you separated 1/50th and you take this onion of truma and you give it to the kohen. Let's say the kohen goes and takes this onion of truma. Shanata, he plants it. Now you have an increase of the outgrowths more than the root itself. Let's say with the halachas of shishim, whatever it is, that would be bittul or 100, whatever the halacha of truma is, that you need a bittul, mutter is going to be permitted. In other words, it's not going to be truma anymore because the gedulim come along and it's mevatel the ikr. Now the Ran does point out it is going to be tavel because ultimately the gedula was nullifying the ikr. So it's back to like tavel. It's not tight. It's not considered like truma anymore. But when we're saying it's mutter, all we mean to say is that it removes the name of truma from it, and if it's going to be permitted in achila sarai, which is any person allowed to eat tavel when he's just snacking on it. But one thing you see that the gedula will be mala as ha'ikr. Rabbi Yirmiyah said to him, to Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, he says, or some say it was Rabbi Zreika, said Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, Shavik Mar Train, the master is going to leave two opinions, that is Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Yonis, that we're going to quote right now, that they hold that Gidul are not Mevatel the Iker. And you're doing like one who says it is Mevatel the Iker? Says Gemaman in the train, who are these two opinions that say that it's not Mevatel the Iker? The first teaching is from Rabbi Yechon. He says, Yalda, when you have a new tree, a young tree that it wasn't already 3 years since it was planted. So that makes the peiros as orlo, which are forbidden to have enough of it. And then he cuts down the young tree, shesivcha bezekena. Then he goes and he grafts it into an old tree, which already had 3 years passed on it already. Now, uva peiros. Now the young tree had peiros already on, because as Ron explains, if it didn't have peiros, then the Gemara says in Seidah Ben Gimel that the young tree that gets grafted with the old tree would be batal, would be nullified, would be considered as part of the old tree. But it already had peiros on this new tree. Says Rabbi Yechanan, even though there was an increase in these peiros, in the outgrowths, meaning what it grew new, in Masayim, it's already 200, which is the shiur of bittul for Arlo. You have to have a shiur of 200 to 1. So even if it grew 200 times more than what it was before you grafted, Asr, it's going to be forbidden. Even though the Gedulim are heter from the old tree, and we rule that a Yalda that gets grafted with a Zakena is batal, even so, since these peiros were already on it before it was grafted, we see that the Gedulim that come are not Mevatel the Iker. That's halacha number one opinion that says no, Gedulim are not Mevatel the Iker. And then there's another teaching. So it's going to be 2 against 1. Why are you ruling like the 1? Because he says, Bitzal should not be kerim. You have an onion that was planted in a vineyard, which a vineyard is klayim, not allowed to plant anything else. So that's Isser. Then V'neker HaKerem. Then the vineyard gets uprooted, they take out all the vines, and then there's no more grapevines, no more vineyard anymore. So then it continues to grow this onion. And as some Girsais have, that Afil Haisiv Masayim, that even if it adds on 200 more than what it originally was, us it's going to be forbidden. Obviously you see that the Gedulim, since they're coming out from the Iker, so it's like the Iker itself, which was Asr. So therefore, that's his question of Yitzchak Nafcha, the laws of Shemitah should be no different. Why are you saying that? The halacha is that you take this onion from the Shemitah and you plant it in the 8th year. If it's Rabbi Gedul Bal Iker, it's going to be mutter, because according to one teaching, what do you mean? You have 2 different opinions that say, not like that, that say that Yechan and B'Yens are both saying that the Gedulim, even if they grew 200 beheter, are not Mevatel Iker because it's coming out of the Isser. However, Hadar Asr L'Kamed Rabami. But this Yishmael subsequently came from the Rabami. Pashli ben Hadar Amr Yitzchak Amr B'Yechan. B'Yechan himself said otherwise. The B'Yechanan says, litra b'tzalim shetikna, if you have a litra, which is a certain amount of onions, which were remedied, meaning that you separated the trumas and the maisus, v'zado, and then you plant it, which the Randrash explains, since a litra has many onions, and he's planting it all around, so the words of Zuriya, although you generally say Natiya, would apply, because it's like planting seeds, because there's so many of them. Okay, be that as an A, but misaseves lefi kula. You have to take meiser. Remember, you were masakin this already. You already took off trumas and meisers. Now that you replanted it, you have to take meiser according to the equivalent of all of it, meaning according to the gedulin and the ikr. Because you're saying lefi kula. Oh, so you see, gedulin. We see that the outgrowths, which are mochlei trumas and meisers, because they never were there before. They're new stuff. They're mevatlin ikr. They do nullify the root, which was pater. And now you see you have to take off trims and meises from it.
Shemitah is different.
Why?
I'm sorry, forget Kalayim is different. Kalayim is an Isser.
This is Tavel.
Okay, right.
Or Truma, whatever. I'm saying,
so you're saying they're both so similar.
Yeah, there's all Isser. Do we say that the Gedulim are going to be Mevatel the Iker or not? Now, the Ram points out, he says, wait a minute, although we just quoted a moment ago from Rabbo in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, that when you have the young tree that gets grafted with the old tree and has peiros, even though it increases 200, it is going to be Asr. Obviously, Rabbi Yechanan holds that Gidul Nanam Mevatel. How are you quoting Rabbi Yechanan now to defend the opinion that wants to say that it is going to be Mevatel from this other teacher, Rabbi Yechanan? Says the Ran, it's what's called Amaron in the belief of Rabbi Yechanan. The Machlek is Amaron according to Rabbi Yechanan. But one thing is, you see, it's not just one opinion that says that Mevatel. I'll bring another halach Rabbi Yechanan that also holds. So don't ask me that it's 2 against 1. So the Gemara rejects it and says that no. Truthfully, I'll tell you that the din is that the Gedul cannot come along and be Mevatel the Iker. Because, like we brought 2 teaching that say that you cannot be Mevatel. And to the contrary, it's just the same. It's not going to be stronger to be Mevatel the Iker. But over here, Dilma L'chumra Shani. Maybe to be stringent was different. That we're going to say, to be mevatel, this bittel, usually bittel is a kula. Because you're saying, oh, the is not here anymore. The Isser Klein is not here, the Isser Shmita is not here anymore. Here the bittel is a chumrah. Because what happens is, you said that it was already mesukin, you already took up Chumas Amaisa, and then now we're saying, no, it's mevatel, and you have to do it over again. It's like it was never typed. And we're saying that the gedulim which are chayiv are going to nullify the ikr to make it chayiv, whereas by the laws of Shemitah, which is a kula, maybe that we wouldn't say. Think into any type of a sense.